Now, McLaren have told Sky Sports there is no problem in the boardroom after delaying a decision over Jenson Button's future. Button has been with McLaren since 2009, but with Fernando Alonso expected to join this winter, one of the drivers has to go. Let's get more on this, bit of analysis. What exactly is going on? Let's speak to the F1 former world F1 champion Damon Hill, Sky Sports' very own. Damon, a very good morning to you. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what's going on at McLaren, what's going on behind you? It looks a lot of fun.
Yeah, there is a lot of fun going on. It's a charity karting event. Johnny Herbert has been doing this karting event for 20 years, so it's the 20th anniversary. He's raised a lot of money for charity over the years, and this year he's chosen the charity I'm very close with, called Halo, and for learning disabilities. And so they're all having fun and having a 3-hour endurance race.
And are you going to be getting involved later on at all?
Well, I've done my back in a bit, so I'm a bit injured and not able to compete, but I would have been in there otherwise.
Right, so you can support from the side rather than getting involved yourself. Let's get in touch now with exactly what's going on at McLaren, because we saw Ron Dennis and Jenson Button deep in conversation in Abu Dhabi very, very recently. What have you made of the way that McLaren are dealing with this situation?
Well, I think there's a lot of ducks that are being put in, or they're trying to get the ducks in a row before they can make an announcement. The feeling I'm getting is a lot of reaction towards the way this has been handled, and a lot of sense that Jenson deserves a little bit better treatment than he's getting. But this is Formula One. You know, I think Jenson would be, if he didn't think he had got a chance, he would have said, listen, I'm off, and there's no point in waiting around. But he knows that he's still got a lot to give, and there's still a chance perhaps that he could be driving for McLaren, and it just depends on a few pieces of the jigsaw to fall into place. So I'm suspecting that what's happening is there are deals that need to be finalised yet at McLaren and before any decision is announced.
How much will Jenson Button's performance over the last 2 seasons come into this? Because he's only been on the podium once over those last 2 years. Is he going to be a real asset?
Yeah, I think it's a little unfair to suggest that it's Jenson's performances. That McLaren themselves have not exactly been at the sharp end now for a few years. Red Bull have dominated, and this year Mercedes dominated. I think McLaren know that they have to improve their performance. Next year they've got Honda engines. There's a good chance that that Honda engine could be very competitive. But Alonso going there, they're building the package they need, but in the past Jenson has had to deal with a lack of performance at the team, so it's not really Jenson's fault.
Now it looks pretty much nailed on that Fernando Alonso is going to be joining either Button or Kevin Magnussen. They've invested a lot of time and money in Kevin Magnussen. Who would you see as the best combination, the experience of Alonso and Button, or the up-and-coming nature of Magnussen and Alonso?
You'd always want to have in your team the best drivers you can possibly have. For one thing, you don't want them going anywhere else. I think the chances of Jenson going somewhere competitive now are slim. So he might look at it and say Alonso might be pushing to have an easier teammate, someone who's not going to cause him any grief, and he'll want to shape the team around him. And Jenson might not fit that bill, having been there for a long time and also being a senior driver and a world champion. But if you're running the team, I personally would go for a combination of Button and Alonso. I think you know, it's a very, very strong driver combination.
You mentioned the fact that there's going to be a new link-up with Honda, and Eric Boullier spoke very openly about exactly what's going on at McLaren recently. Should we respect the fact that they just want to take their time and make sure that they've got things right, or should Jenson Button deserve more credit in this? You know, some people have called his treatment disgusting in the media. Do you go that far or not?
Yeah. I sense there's a lot of discomfort about the way Jenson's been treated. But this is Formula One, and in order for things to happen, deals need to be in place first. And even if Jenson is not asking for lots of money, he still needs some retainer of some sorts, and also the other parts of the equation need to be there. So I can only assume that it's worth hanging on, and Jenson is the best judge of that. He's in that position. He can walk away, I presume, but he's hanging on, and I'm sure that McLaren are trying their best. Otherwise, one assumes they would have said to Jenson, listen, we can't hold you on, we can't keep on to you, go and do whatever you need to do.
Now, amongst his peers, obviously, you know, there's 2 teams in administration at the moment. We're not quite sure what's going to be happening with Caterham and Marussia, but McLaren, the only other team that hasn't finalised their lineup. When you're amongst your peers in the paddock, do you almost feel a little bit embarrassed if you haven't nailed down your place for next year?
Yeah, well, these are the things that you have to endure in this game. I call it a game. I mean, there's sporting part of it is there, but there's all sorts of business deals, and sometimes it can be humiliating. I myself was a world champion, but I didn't retain my drive. This is Formula One. Things happen that for what might seem reasons that are inexplicable to the fans, but there's some behind it. There's some logic, or one hopes there's some logic to it, and business reason that is coming into play. And that's that you, as a driver, you're very much in the mix of a very fluid world. You can't expect that just because you've done very well and you're a nice guy and people like you, that you're going to keep your place in Formula One. There are other ingredients and other factors.
And obviously, you know, Jenson's had a difficult time in his personal life recently. But if we look back, the last time that he won was Brazil 2012. Just a final point on this: if you were in charge, would you be keeping him for all that he brings?
Well, I could only keep him if it fitted with all the other ingredients that are necessary. Standing from the outside, yes, I would.